All right, welcome to another version of the Rock Fantasy Files, and we're going pinball and we're going rock and roll with my special guest, Jeremy Packer, also known as the Monster Zombie Yeti. Welcome, Jeremy. Good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Nice to be here virtually, as is everything now.
Yeah, everything's Zoom now. We should have bought stocks in that back in December.
No kidding.
But I've started this program, whatever you want to call it, during the pandemic, just because I was going stir crazy, and I've launched a website for my business, Rock Fantasy, in Middletown, New York, which is a brick and mortar record shop, smoke shop, and we have about 30 pinball machines, everything from early 70s to the latest creations from Stern and Chicago Gaming and some of the others. And you've done some great artwork on a lot of the newer. I think a lot of the artists that work for Stern now are just amazing. You and Franchi, and I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, but I just, and the stuff you've done, and it's amazing. I love all the art that you've done. So
I appreciate that.
How did you get started in art? I mean, how did you get started knowing this was going to be your passion? What kind of a road was it to go down?
I was one of those who was kind of born. I guess I picked up crayons when I was young, and I enjoyed it, and I spent way too much time in that direction. As I got older, I grew up in Indiana, and actually I'm a tall guy despite my slouching and posture in my chair right now. I'm about 6'4". No athletic ability whatsoever. So that helps. I didn't get sidetracked, playing basketball or anything else, and that's pretty much what's expected of you when you live in Indiana, and especially when you're tall.
Yeah.
So I just always loved it. I love creating. I loved cartoons, comics, video games. I mean, I remember my dad used to take me to this one drugstore that was the only place I knew I could get comics, and I'd go about once a week, once every other week or whatever, and pick up at least a comic or two, and
okay.
So I was always sort of programmed that direction. It was what interested me, and even going back to video games, obviously I loved arcades and everything when I was a kid. The aesthetic of even the old crappy box art from video games of the 80s, things like that, always fascinated me. I love them. Even some to this day that you would go, oh, that's a terrible drawing, or that's a terrible composition. There's charm to that stuff. I mean, I love it. And so I don't know. I've just always, again, I always say that I sort of just tripped and fell into it. I just existed.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's it.
I love some of the, like the 60s, 70s Marvel and DC comic book art.
Oh, absolutely.
And all that stuff. And then you get some people that put down pinball art. I'm like, the art of pinball over the years has been something special for me as growing up as a kid, just getting into pinball. Half of it was the playing it. The other half was really how they looked, how they sounded, and the great artists like Gordon Morrison that worked for Gottlieb back in the 70s, and guys like that did all the Bally's and stuff like that I met, and I should have wrote their names down because it's early in the morning, and I've got pandemic Alzheimer's a little, I think, with my mind from being, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's from the mask. But
I got the same problem. It's lack of oxygen. No, I'm totally with you. I think it's the equivalent of album artwork when it comes to pinball and video games. I mean, like, that's sort of like the thing that grabbed you was that side art, maybe in a lot of cases the logo, obviously in pinball the backglass, but I was the same way with everything. I mean, you don't know how many albums I've bought in my life based on a cover alone, not knowing anything about the artist, and I got lucky a lot of times.
Especially, I mean, you're much younger than I am. I'm closing in on the big 6-0. I mean, as a metalhead and a classic rock guy like I've been, back in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't really any way of figuring out what that album was other than the artwork. And you'd say, wow, that looks like it should be heavy. You know, I can remember buying the Boston album in high school and picking that up and then bringing it back into school. I mean, there was our high school, you could walk down the hill and there was almost like what Walmart is now, but way cooler. It was a department store that had a grocery store and it had a record department, a toy department, everything there. And we would either skip school or go there for lunch. And I'm like, look at this album. And all the kids were making fun of me. It's like, Boston, what's that? Then 2 months later, they're like, everybody was playing that 8-track in their cars or whatever. That's how old I am. But the same thing with the Metallica album covers. I bought the Iron Maiden album covers sight unheard when I picked that first album in a Record World chain out here. I remember picking that up in the Def Leppard on Through the Night. That's for the album covers. Sometimes
absolutely.
Burned too. You'd get burned. You'd get this thing home, and it looked great, and it was like, "What's this shit?"
Well, there's and I don't know if this is true. And this is, you say, you're older. I'm not that young.
Okay.
I'm in my 20s. No, I'm joking. No, I just turned 44. But I'm a late bloomer.
Yeah.
But back in the 80s and 90s, to a point, because again, pre-internet era, I guess is probably the way to put it. And this will age us greatly for all the young people watching who will be like, old people. But it was a lot easier to do that. It was a lot easier to take a gamble because you didn't have this sort of split and splintering of genres just to create a marketable segment. Which I'm not saying that there's not, good music out there from that. I'm just saying that, it was the time before you had to do that. So you kind of knew, hey, this is probably going to be rock. This is probably not going to be rock, based on the cover. Although there's some exceptions to that.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, no, I'm not that far off.
So you've done work with everything. We were talking about pinballs, and one of the things that I noticed about you when you were first, because I kind of met you when you were first doing pinball. And I mean, you worked with, before Stern, you worked with another pinball company too, correct? Or another artist?
We don't talk about that one. No, yeah. I'm joking. I'm joking.
On that one time with a Magic Girl and this and that, correct?
Yeah, no, I didn't know what I was doing. No, I had started initially in the pinball world working with John Papaduke in Zidware. He picked me out of a crowd. So as much as I curse the internet, he found me through the internet. So I guess I will continue to curse the internet. But anyway, no, I'm joking. And so what happened was, I had worked with him from about 2011 till like 2015. And that was the point in time when all of a sudden it was sort of, like I was under the impression the whole time, because I was made to be under the impression that he was funding everything himself and he was like doing all this stuff and we're going to get this stuff done. And then everything, the bottom fell out. And obviously that wasn't the case. And, there were some people who came in to try to like sort of pick up Zidware and finish the games at that point, which I guess continues to this day, technically.
I guess it does.
But and I was there for one of them. And then like I was so like dismayed by like the whole thing. Like I had left corporate America because I hated what I had encountered. And so I was always very adamant with him about, like, listen, like we got to do the best we can. We can't take advantage of people, this, that, and the other. So it was one of those things where I was just like, I don't even want to be a part of this. If this is, like I didn't even know the details of everything. So I kind of felt a little hurt. And so I walked out when the Pentasia thing was going on, where they were trying to take over. And I think I probably made some people mad in that process because they kind of needed me. But I was like, whatever. And so what happened was Dennis Nordman reached out to me through Pinside, because that's when I discovered Pinside.
Sure.
No one knew
Sure.
that I was doing. No one knew I was doing the art for Zidware because I guess John had sort of presented it that he was doing the art for
Well,
Zidware.
okay.
But this is what I was told. I don't know. Whatever. And I was always, I just kept my mouth shut and I just did my work. And at that point, Dennis was like, "Hey, I've got this, game I'm working on. Would you be interested in maybe doing a little work for it?" And it ended up being a pitch and bat machine.
Okay.
We did, yeah. They did two versions: a regular sort of throwback baseball all stars, and then the other one was zombie baseball all
Oh
stars.
yeah, I've never seen a
Yeah,
zombie one in the flesh actually.
yeah,
I think I've
yeah.
seen the other one. Is it with the early old school where they actually the players would run around the bases in the
Yep.
background? Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
played one at Automated Services a few weeks ago.
Yeah, both are very cool machines.
Yep.
Unfortunately, way too costly for what they are.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, yeah.
that's the biggest problem. You can't. But anyway, it was fun. It was great.
Yep.
And while I was working on that, because actually I don't think those released until after Ghostbusters, but while I was working on those, he said, "Hey, I got to introduce you to my buddy Greg Freris
Sure.
at Stern." And so I met up with him. We met at Stern, and we just went out and we went to Sweet Baby Ray's and had some lunch. It turns out that Greg is a fantastic guy, and him and I have a lot in common. A lot of differences too, but a lot in common. And we just hit it off and just sort of struck up a communication line. And I just let him know. I said, "Listen, if I'm ever," I said, "I don't need to do pinball." I said, I love it. I want to do it, but I can tell you right now, I don't need to do it. I'm taking a break right now, but if you ever have a project, if
Sure.
I'm going to do it, I want to do it with a company that's going to, be able to reach the largest audience. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Sure.
hit me up. And by the way, it's not like I thought that, it was going to be like a huge payday or it was going to be, like an easy task. I just knew if I'm going to put this energy and I've been putting into it, I'm not going to put it somewhere where it's going to be squandered again.
Sure.
And
Sure.
that was sort of my thinking. And
Do all
anyway,
that work.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so after, I don't know, like a couple months, I can't even remember the time frame now.
Sure.
Uh, Greg hit me up and said, "Hey, I've, got something I'd like you to test for. Could you, do some drawings, blah, blah, blah." And then at the end of the interview, or at the end of the interview, at the end of the, we're on an interview here. It is morning, by the way.
It's morning. You might be not watch this one this morning, but it's morning while we're doing this. Yes.
That's right.
Which is fine.
Yeah, but so at the end of the email, he said that, and by the way, it involved Bill Murray. And at that point, I knew it's like one of, like maybe two things, and I knew it was probably only the one. And so
Yeah.
I just responded in all caps, "It better fucking be Ghostbusters." And sure enough, it was. But I did not know that. I just did what I was supposed to do, and I didn't know that until I think the next week or whatever. But yeah, that got me that gig, and at that point I said, "Well, I'm gonna put everything I can into it." And I know it was at the tail end of it. Like I came in very late on that one,
On the
so I
Ghostbusters
didn't
thing.
have as much. I didn't have as much time, and that's kind of why, on top of the fact that we knew that we had to deal with different actors and different camps to get approvals, that's why you see sort of the same Ghostbuster poses on all the back glasses. Like we had
Yes.
sort of, this is
Okay.
approved, and then I kind of, and that was my idea, by the way, because I knew that was going to be an issue. My idea was, well, if we can sort of create this core and then make the changes in the surrounding areas, sort of vignette those, it could be interesting. Yeah, but yeah, I tried my best, and it was well received, minus
Yeah.
the flipper gap.
And yeah, I thought it was a really good game. I actually recently sold mine just through the pandemic. I had it out in location, and I needed to get some kind of cash to lay back on because I had just moved my store, and that's one of the ones that got cut. It was a Ghostbusters Premium. And I always thought it was a
Oh
really
wow.
fun game to play. But and for those that are watching this show that aren't in the pinball, when Stern does a pinball machine, there's usually three different back glasses art packages that Jeremy would have to work on. Like if you're looking at my background behind, we're showing the Iron Maiden Pro and the Iron Maiden Premium, and then there will be also an Iron Maiden LE. So there's 3 different back glasses, and there's usually 3 different art packages, or is there 3 different art packages for the side cabinet art too, correct?
Yep.
You have to work on.
That's it's funny too. I always think that my best concept is the first one.
Okay.
Except in one case, and that was Iron Maiden. For some reason, and I think it was because I was just trying to get my footing, maybe. Like I was still kind of figuring my way around it. Because again, it was intimidating. Like I knew I would probably, I thought, and you can ask anyone on the team, I thought every day I would at some point go, man, this is going to be my last machine. Everyone's going to hate me because I'm not Derek Riggs. This is going to be a disaster. I'm trying my best. I'm sorry. Whatever. But and so it was one of those things where I think when I got to the premium, something clicked at some point when I was coming up with concepts, and that sort of steamrolled the rest of it. And actually that was before I had even started inks or color on the Pro, so it kind of helped push that a little further as well. Whatever headspace I got into was a good one, let's put it that way.
I mean, now when you're doing a Stern, do you do the Pro art first, or do you have a procedure that you go through? I'm doing the Pro first, then a premium, or does it just you got to do one that has to be done first, or?
There's not really an order, but I kind of have a little bit of an order. Like when I working with Maiden, like working with Keith. Keith always has sort of really concrete ideas. Obviously, he does his own game rules, everything.
Yeah.
So he kind of knew. Yeah, he kind of knew vaguely what he wanted for the LE and the premium, but he didn't know what he wanted for the Pro. And so for me, it's easier to start with the Pro. Same like with Turtles, it was the same thing. I go, okay, the Pro has got to be like the broadest appeal. Like, so I just think of the Pro as kind of like the best of kind of scenario. And then I kind of go with more snapshots for the premium and LE to make them a little more special and unique. That's sort of the thinking process, whether it works or not. But yeah, it's there's usually not an order, but I will say I tend to think that in most cases the Pro is probably the broadest idea, and to that end, the most appealing, maybe to a larger segment in many ways. And so that's kind of where I aim. But
I agree with you on the Pro, because the Pro, I had a Pro and then I ended up selling the Pro because I wanted the features from the premium. I didn't get an LE. My friend Chris Caffrey, who's from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, has an LE in the next town down, and great art too. But to me, the Pro just covers the bases of the Iron Maiden, where if you can see it sitting behind me, you've got the Steve Harris Eddie with the bass, you've got all the different eras pretty much represented, where the Power Slave is more the legacy of the beast.
Yeah.
And so I have both now, and I tell you what, Stern makes it tough, because if you're a real heavy metal or a band collector, if you're doing an art package for a band, how do you live with it? How do I get rid of the legacy of the Beast Pro that's got the Trooper on the side, it's got the Rat Child Killer's album on the head, and then you go to the other one that's just Power Slave. So if you really like the earlier Maiden, you're going to want the Pro. So I have both right now, actually.
Well, thank you. No, that got me to another project. I selfishly think that the Pro needs to be as good or better, only because of the fact that I never know if I'll have enough money for a premium or LE. Anyway.
Yeah. You want to have one that looks good for your room too, right? For your
selfishly, yeah. And that's the bad thing. Unfortunately, I only have a Pro Ghostbusters. I always wish I would have got a premium. Someday, maybe I will.
Yeah.
I was new to the scene. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how
So,
to
so
negotiate.
do you have some pinballs in your home collection?
I do. I do. Right now, currently, I have everything but my Iron Maiden and my
Oh,
Turtles, but we'll get into that later.
okay. uh,
I'm looking to alleviate that problem shortly. So
so let's go down the list for people that don't know. What pinball machines have you done art with for Stern? I mean, Ghostbusters was your first. Iron Maiden was your second, correct?
technically, Deadpool was my second, but
Oh,
Iron
Deadpool.
Maiden, but it got put on hiatus because the designer, well, he went away. And so then George Gomez came in and completely scrapped everything and redesigned it.
The Deadpool.
Um, yeah. So what happened was I was literally in the middle of Deadpool.
Oh, I see.
Um,
Okay. Okay. I understand
Keith,
now. Yep. Yep.
yeah, Keith came in, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to work with Keith on Iron Maiden? The licensor would like you to do it since I had worked with him before."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Sure." And so then what happened is as soon as Iron Maiden was done, and I think it was like a 6 or 7 month schedule. It was kind of nightmarish as far as
Mm.
moving through. And as soon as I was done with my part, I jumped right back into Deadpool, right into the play field. The cabinet artwork had already been done for every model
Oh.
for Deadpool at that point. One of the back glasses had to change, but not anything major. But there was a character. So when we started the game, I'll just tell you this. I don't think I can get in trouble for this.
Okay.
When we start, and I actually have the artwork. I won't show it, but when we started the game originally, one of the storylines and one of the groups of characters we were going to have in it were the Dead Presidents, which was from a Brian Posehn run of Deadpool. And so we had these zombie presidents, and actually,
Oh.
the one behind you with Colossus.
That's one.
Colossus originally was
Oh, this one.
zombie Abraham Lincoln,
Oh,
and
wow.
well, what happened was Trump got elected, and they're like, violence against presidents. It could really happen, so maybe we should step back from it. And by the way, that's the licensor, I think. I don't know.
And look where we are in 2020 now. And they were
Oh
soon to
no, I
have
know.
it.
Now people would love it. No, I'm just kidding. No. Having said that, though, I don't. I honestly, I'm sort of kind of putting together my own story. I don't know the details there, but we ended up going to the Colossus instead,
Which makes sense.
yeah, yeah. And so then I finished that project out, and literally the day that I passed off the last bits of it, I had to start on Primus, which I had like 4 weeks, 5 weeks to do, somewhere around there. And that one I worked with a good friend, Zoltron.
I
And
should have put up some art from the Primus to show
oh,
everyone.
that's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay. But
people can find it.
yeah, yeah. And so, but I created all the art. So Zoltron and I sort of passed ideas and concepts around, and he got a lot of buy-in from the band. We'd worked with the band. I mean, he's worked with the band for 20, 30 years,
Okay.
something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so and we've been friends and been working together for I don't know 15 years, something like that.
Okay.
And what happened was I saw it as like when I was approached about it, it was actually after Maiden came out. Their management contacted me and was like, "Hey, can we get a Primus machine made?" And I'm like, "Well," I said, "You got to get Stern. I mean, like they're the ones who would make that decision." And so I put
Sure.
them in touch, and it ended up going towards that program that they did PBR and everything else with. It's kind of like a super limited
Yes.
run.
I think
It's not
100,
as
right?
yeah, yeah, and so long story short, I looked at it as an opportunity to get Zoltron involved so that him and I could do another cool thing together, and he could get a
Sure.
machine and I could get a machine.
Yeah. There you
And that
go.
was and that was sort of how it happened. But yeah, it was like nonstop. So pretty much from like around May of the prior year until like June, July of the next year, I had been working nonstop with like every deadline behind for every project for Stern on those three back to back. And when I
Yeah.
got done with it, uh, I said, I got to take a break. I was exhausted. And I honestly, for a while, thought that I was not going to return to pinball because I'm kind of like, this is, as much as I love it, it's like it was so draining and it was, it was rough because as a freelancer, when you're not available for your clients, they're going to find someone else. And so when
Sure.
I'm off for a year doing other projects and I come back, then, it's kind of harder to just jump right back into it and be like, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had like this whole period of, what do I do? Do I do this? Anyway, eventually I came to my senses and George Gomez and I had a talk and Greg and I had talks and I do think some of the best work I've ever done has been with Stern. And I'm like, okay, let's give this another go.
Sure,
and,
sure.
and so that's sort of, how I got into Turtles, so to speak. And actually, another one, which eventually we'll all see. But and so right now I'm actually getting ready to start yet another one.
I got Turtles behind me now. They're popped up.
Nice.
That's the Pro, right? That's the Pro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Pro. That's the one that should appeal to everyone, right? It's
I got a
in
Pro in
theory.
my store. I went out and bought a new one, and we got it in the shop, and it's hanging out, waiting for people to come play it.
Oh, it's a great game. It's like the absolute, in my opinion, flowiest, smoothest board playing game for me that I love. Like it's the style of game that I love in that regard.
I've been playing the heck out of it when I'm up at work, and it's a very fast game.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
I can't get it to do anything. So.
Oh really?
My average score is in the like 5 to 10 million. So yeah, maybe not even 10. I'm thinking 5 million. I'm not bad at it.
Wow. Well, give it time, or maybe just a hair.
What's that? Read the rules.
No. Make an adjustment. Maybe change the pitch a hair. No, I'm joking. But it is fast. It is super fast.
It doesn't seem like like just playing out of the box with me, just getting used to it. It doesn't seem like a real high scoring game compared to some others.
Well, I think, and I'm speaking out of school here. Don't quote me on this, but I think Dwight had got a lot of feedback in the past that he made his games too high scoring. And so I think he may have intentionally pulled back on this one. I don't know.
I mean, it's still a great game. I probably just got to figure out to add some multipliers to something I'm doing or something or another,
There is a lot of strategy to it.
Yeah,
again,
there definitely is a lot of stuff going on.
But no, it was a lot of fun, and obviously I was a huge Turtles fan. I see
a couple of toys hanging around with you there.
Oh yeah, no, I got those are from when I was a kid. I mean, like I've got, trust me, there's way more off camera, but I jumped at the chance. I put my hat in the ring before this even existed, and then I heard Nickelodeon was coming into Stern and they were going to pitch a game, and I said, listen, if it's 87 Turtles, call me, I'm there.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a text actually from Dwight after the meeting. And he was the first one to kind of reach out and say, hey, Borg and I were just in a meeting with Nickelodeon. What do you think about, the 87 Turtles? And I think I responded in all caps, better fucking be Ghostbusters. I'm sorry, that's a callback. That's terrible. But it was essentially kind of, for me, it was the same thing. I literally saw this, in my opinion, as the equivalent of Ghostbusters in appeal to my age specifically, my age range specifically.
Yeah.
because it's broad. I mean, Turtles still exists to this day. Ghostbusters still exists to this day. I mean, it's a lot of people love the world and environment and the characters. And I thought that I could have fun with it. And Nickelodeon was very supportive, and they made my life very easy. I don't think I had a single vision on anything in that project.
Nice.
And that's the way you want them.
I just picked up some of the Super 7. I carry the Super 7 line of figures, and I just picked up. I don't carry their whole line, but I figured since we got a Turtles in the shop, I'll pick up the Turtles line. So we got those in the shop.
I've got some of those.
The Super 7 toys are just amazing. I just love how they do, cross into the heavy metal and some of the cool comics. And my dream game is already made. I think Iron Maiden, because you guys worked on that. Like we were talking off camera before. I got to meet Jeremy in person at one of the Pintastic conventions up in Massachusetts a few years ago, and he remembered more than I did of our meeting. How I was like, hey, Iron Maiden would be a good game or something, and you were like, I don't know if I want to do that. But
yeah, I tried to play coy because I think at that point there were actually rumors on Pinside and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah, the rumors were all over, of course, on Pinside, and I think like going back into '80s licenses, sort of like Turtles and Ghostbusters. I think one of the hugest licenses from the '80s that really deserves a pinball, I think would do really well, would be He-Man and the Masters of the Universe with Skeletor. I think that would be a great pinball.
Completely agree, and I've said it many times, and I've said if I don't do it, I'm moving on. You guys have.
I mean, we don't want to see that window pass, but I guess it wouldn't pass because hey, they're still doing stuff from the '60s, so I think we got many years where they can still do stuff from the '80s, maybe.
Well, I always get excited when I hear, like, I know that they're talking about doing a new He-Man movie, potentially live action. I don't know what it might be CGI. Who knows?
Might be CGI and whenever now the pandemic is, might be the only way of doing it right now.
Right. So when I hear that stuff, I get excited again because that means more than likely those licensors are going to start creating a little bit of heat, and they'll start, getting on the radar of, hopefully maybe Gary Stern and people of that nature, and then everyone else chimes in. But
it's just like
speaking of which,
go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In licensing, you just see some of the other, when you go walk around a toy fair or you see other stuff like what Super 7's doing, and it kind of portrays into what some of the other licensors are doing. They did really well with the He-Man toys, I believe the Super 7 did. And Planet of the Apes, which was an older one that they ran. And I don't know, I'm rambling on, so.
No, I was just gonna say I got to give a shout out to Jody Dankberg at Stern, because Jody's the reason why I've got to work on all the cool things I have in regards to him getting in. He's got a good brain and a good eye for good licenses. I mean, he's the reason Iron Maiden exists. But and again, it's funny because I talk to Jody. We're good friends and we talk frequently, and we're always throwing out, like our, kind of dream themes and stuff like that as far as licensing and stuff go. He's a big toy collector also, and
I saw him. I actually saw him at Toy Fair, and he also comes from the rock and roll background, working with the guitars, and he knows quite a few of people that I know, from musicians and bands. Probably knows more than I know, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's his space. I mean, definitely. And he's brought that over to Stern, and I think it's been very beneficial in regards to getting in. I think he was the one behind Metallica initially too, wasn't he? Like,
another great game with Dirty Donnie, another great artist that they have at Stern. Dirty, I don't know, he hasn't done any games in a little while with them, and I like Franchi's art a lot too.
Yep. Yeah, no, Donnie, I think, and I don't know if this is true, but I'm always going to give him the credit for it. I think Donnie's the reason why John Papaduke ever sought me out. I think he was looking for someone to do line work in the age of Photoshop. And so I always give Donnie all the credit for my involvement, because I do think had he not proven to the industry, hey, we can actually do hand-drawn art again. You don't have to just, put this Photoshop stuff out
Yes,
there.
yes, and thank
I
God
don't
for
I don't think I don't think I'd exist in this space. And so I'm forever indebted to Donnie.
in that Metallica game with that style of art made it for me because I'm a big Metallica supporter, of course, because of the heavy metal, and I grew up saw the Kill 'Em All tour, and I would really have rather seen them portrayed as the younger Metallica, and just doing the art made the game pop, being the
Yeah.
cartoony art for them instead of just pictures of them now in their 50s on the thing. And the Rolling Stones Pinball by Stern, I think could have what been cooler with a little more art like that too, or some vintage art. But that's a whole other
Yeah.
story.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, and this is my my only little rant to the current age of pinball is, as soon as the high def LCD came into play, I start getting a little concerned that I'm not going to be as viable anymore, because if they use like, a film or television show with like, actors, you can't really have a stylized art package on something that's representational.
Yeah, with certain licenses, sure, yeah.
I mean, that's just my opinion. Again, I said that like it's the perfect age for Christopher Franchi in that regard. Because his stuff is very much reference representational, and that's fantastic. But again, I've tried to pick projects where I have some freedom. Otherwise, I would.
Sure. I mean, you did a great job at Iron Maiden. Like we were talking earlier about, everybody's like Derek Riggs and who's going to pull it off. And I don't think anybody complained when they saw your art come out. They were like, wow, it just looks great.
I appreciate that, because I, to this day, assume there's people out there that do.
And I gotta realize,
and that's okay.
I guess I should have looked it up before we did the interview, but Derek Riggs hasn't worked for Iron Maiden in years. He hasn't done any of the later album covers, which, Maiden's still a very strong menace in the heavy metal world, one of the strongest bands still playing arenas and playing stadiums and over in Europe. They're still, other, maybe them and Metallica or AC/DC are probably the three big metal bands left that can do arenas, for the most part. I mean, throw Tool and some of these up to the newer bands in too.
Yeah. But hey, I don't see them touring this summer. Anyway, sorry.
That's no one's touring this summer.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry. No, I had a ton. I had tons. I was gonna say I had tons of gig posters lined up for this summer.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I wanted to hit on. That's one of the main things that I thought you were known for are gig posters, and I don't have any to show anyone today. But you've done. What bands have you worked with doing gig posters? And do you have one that you can show? Is there any sitting around there?
Well, if I go through my flat files and everything else, I can probably grab some. I'll just make it quick. The first one I ever did was for Primus in 2011, and that was, I had met Zoltron, and it was, we sort of hit it off. We have similar ethos and sort of odd vision, a little skewed on certain things when it comes to art. Like he has a very similar appreciation of oddity that I do, but at the same time an appreciation of the craft, and it's one of those things where we both kind of hit it off because we kind of had a lot to learn from each other in many ways. Like but anyway, so he gave me my first shot because he knew I was a Primus fan when I was in high school and stuff like that. And he's like, well, hey, do you want to, and he started the whole curated tour poster concept with them where, he started getting artists involved, and apparently he had a slot that he needed to fill, and he's like, oh, this one can go to anyone. So we'll give it to the new guy and let him go. And people responded. They loved it. I sold out within a matter of 5-10 minutes and it was the first gig poster I ever did. To this day, I only have one copy because I didn't think beyond I have these,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
here they are, buy them. So I think maybe my parents have a copy too, but that's just because I was like, look, mom. But yeah, from there, working with Primus a lot, I ended up um, getting other bands that were like, hey, we like that, would you want to do something with us? I started working with Secret Serpents, to work with bands like Faith No More, who
Like,
I absolutely love and grew up on, and uh, uh, ironically, when I was at Pentastic, I think it was the first night or the second night, I got a call. You know that little area, like where the restaurant is, like in that area or whatever. I'm like
yeah,
walking
yeah.
back.
Up in the
Yeah,
old where the
yeah,
pool
the old
area
play.
was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was
Yeah.
walking back to my room, and I get a call. I didn't recognize it, but it was an LA number, and I'm like, okay, I'll answer or whatever, and I answer it. And it ended up actually being management, and it was Foo Fighters were putting on a secret show during Lollapalooza at Chicago in like 2 weeks, and they're like, "Could you do something?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure." And I jumped at the chance, and I did something. I actually got to go to the show too. Perry Farrell came out at the end and everything. It was very, very bizarre, strange, long concert. Their goal was to play every song they ever did. They might have come close. It started at
Wow.
11. I think it was going on at like 5, 6 in the morning still. But
Holy crap, man. That's a
yeah,
late night.
so right. So I just got lucky and managed to be the guy who made the poster, and I tried to do the best I could, and I made an iconic image that resonated. It sold out, sold well. I still to this day get contacted almost daily by people trying to track them down. Sorry, I can't help. Um, uh, but yeah, I mean, I to be honest, in my head, I mean, I've done stuff, big business, the whores, um, man, I'm so terrible at remembering.
I saw the Deftones listed on one of your.
Oh yeah, that was actually early on in my career. I did I think some merchandise like T-shirt designs and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So when did you
Yeah.
actually start? How long ago did you was something like that going on when you did stuff for the Deftones, like a T-shirt design?
Like probably 2010,
Oh,
somewhere
okay.
around there. Like I the space was different back then, and
Yeah.
so I sort of got in this loop of like these merch companies that were like work with
Sure.
bands, and so I was working with like a third party to create stuff, and what would happen is if the band liked it, they'd say, can we get more from this person, blah blah blah, and I literally, like, I remember one of the first things I did was for like Paul McCartney was doing this like world tour, and I did
That's
a
pretty
bunch of like,
awesome.
well, it was the first thing my mom recognized and thought it was awesome.
Oh wow, the
Uh,
Beatles. Yeah, Paul McCartney, Sir Paul. Pretty big. Yeah.
but it's like all kinds of like these bluebird shirts, and I mean it was whatever. I don't
Yeah,
claim
yeah,
a lot of it, but it was, for me, it was sort of learning the ropes, and it was good opportunities,
yeah.
and it all led me to where I'm at as far as what I know and how I approach any project. So
So
I like to work
yeah,
in different spaces. I like gig posters because they are much more punk rock, like immediate. The immediacy of even creating them. Like I try to get in a headspace and
yeah,
really attack them in a different way than like a lot of these Stern projects. I get really heady about them. Like I'm like, okay, like with Turtles, like okay, I analyze that version of the Turtles versus everyone that came since, and
yeah.
one of the big factors that is unique to that era was they're all very much soft curvilinear forms. Like
Yeah.
there are no, and as every version has come since has gotten more angular. So I said, okay, that's not. I like angles. I like a combination. And so in this case, I kind of forced myself. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I really do it this way to kind of support feel and look that existed. And so that kind of stuff I don't do in gig posters. I just kind of like go, here's a crazy idea. And if the band asks you to do it, they just trust you. There's no sign off really.
Okay,
Even the
good.
biggest bands. Foo Fighters, even with Foo Fighters, like there's really no sign off. The only thing they really ever look at a poster for before it goes to print is to make sure you don't have any typos.
Yeah, on the right date and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have probably grabbed something to put up behind me so you could see your other work other than pinball. But yeah.
That's no big deal.
And it looks like so you're a music fan in general too, correct? You're like
absolutely.
rock and some metal bands. Who are some of your favorites? Other, maybe
well,
we just mentioned them.
Well, yeah, I have a lot. I kind of grew up with parents that love music, so I have a kind of a broad spectrum of depending on my mood, what I'll listen to. Every project I've done for Stern, every line, every bit of color, everything was done while listening to music. I can't listen to podcasts and work. Like I just want to be like, in sort of this zone of I always say it's like when I was 13 years old and I would just be like drawing, and then all of a sudden I go, oh my goodness, it's been an hour. Like that's sort of the headspace I like to try to get to.
Get in that zone.
Yeah, but as far as music, I mean, like day to day, week to week, it depends. I can tell you right now, I'm Ghostbusters. Probably a good percentage, at least 60 to 70% of it was definitely done. Faith No More had just released their last and latest album after being so Soul Invictus came out.
Yes.
Yeah, and such a great album. And I swear I got stuck for like a month. I just had that thing on repeat. Like, and I'm not that way all the time, but that one really drove a lot of stuff late in the game on that one.
Cool.
But no, I love everything. I mean, I go back. I mean, when I was younger, I really loved like the Dead Milkmen. Lou Reed at the same time as the Dead Milkmen. I don't understand it, but just this past week I've been listening to a lot of Pavement. I've been kind of falling back into the sort of 90s era there.
Okay.
I love Steve Malkmus's guitar work, and his writing is great.
Nice.
But I could name probably about any band you could name. I probably like. I'm not a big fan of pop music or country, but about anything else I'm okay with.
I'm okay with no pop, no modern pop. I like 60s and 70s, 80s kind of pop is that I can listen to a lot, but not the modern.
I can now. It's funny, like the 80s pop stuff, like I was always like, oh, that's trash or whatever. And now I listen to current pop and I go, well, actually, by comparison, that stuff was pretty good. And so now I like it.
Of course, 60s AM.
But that's an age thing.
Yeah,
that's an age thing.
Yeah, it's an age thing. 60s AM, you had everything from Cream to the Beatles to James Brown to, it's such a great variety. It looks like, I guess we could wrap things up pretty soon. When you were working with I Remain, did you get to meet anybody from the band? Was Steve Harris on board at all? Did you get the...
Yeah. So they actually played in Chicago like that August. I think it was that August. And we were all supposed to go. All the team members were all supposed to go, and we're supposed to meet the band. And actually, Keith was at Stern, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't want to go. I'm not feeling well." And I'm like, "Oh, feeling well? What are you talking about?" So I still give him crap about that. But so we ended up going. We actually had full backstage access, you name it, whatever. And like, I'm one of those people like, I hate to even say this, but I've met some of my heroes, and they kind of like let me down a little bit.
It's happened.
So I kind of, so I kind of prefer not to. And so I just sort of, stayed from a distance. I didn't go out of my way.
Yeah.
But But we had a lot of feedback and a lot of correspondence back and forth on things, and I think everyone was very pleased with the results.
Yes, yes, it's such a great theme, and I can't wait to see what you're coming out with next.
Yeah, hopefully. I kind of assume everything before it's released is going to be the one that people hate and ruins my career. So we'll just assume the next one's my last.
Hey, at least, hey, you know what? People, we're talking about Papa Duke before. Now, Papa Duke's been to my house.
Okay.
And I was going to pinball conventions, and I guess there's a slight resemblance between me and him.
I didn't want to say it, but I was going to tell you the first time that we met, I honestly almost made the joke.
I think I might have told you then, but I was literally on a pinside thread from an Allentown pin fest several years ago where people were just going batshit crazy over it. Like, how can that son of a bitch walk around a show? And I was walking around with a good friend of mine that used to come up and work at booth. Her name is Faith, and she was, very flamboyant. She works in a strip club, and she worked as a bartender, and she would come decked to the nines and look like she was a creation from a pinball back glass. And they're like, how can he walk around with that, stripper walking around Allentown when he owes all these people money? And I'm like, so people wanted to get me a shirt that says, I am not John Papaduke.
No, you know what I'm gonna do? Let me know what your size is, and let me know what the next show is you go to. If we're ever at the same show, we're both gonna walk around together with Magic Girl back glasses and wearing Zidware shirts, just to see what happens.
Yeah, you just don't know what might happen there. We might get shot.
That's a good point, actually. As long as we're not wearing Trump hats, I think maybe we'll be okay. But
yeah, I tell you, let's not get into no politics today. Politics and virus are just nothing. But I hate medical stuff and I hate politics, and here we are in 2020.
Well, I told you I'm not a sports fan, so I'm not really big on politics either. It's kind of a sport to me.
Sports and politics, yeah. What governor's winning today?
Yeah.
And, between me and you, like I'm so against politicians. I mean, I think when they first start out, they're very good, and there's probably some that are good out there that I know, and it's just. But now it almost seems like we've got this virus, and a lot of people are taking advantage of it to push agendas. Time. We're not going to get into that, but we're talking about pinball,
right,
and music and good stuff. So,
yeah, no, absolutely, and I completely agree. I think everyone. My belief anyway is I think the mass majority of sane human beings do anything for the right reasons until something corrupts or changes. The rule set, and I think
big flock of money comes on your desk.
Yeah. It would be hard. It'd be hard.
Bayer aspirin's really good for you. Here's $1 million. Go vacation. Something like that. Yeah.
No, trust me. But yeah, no. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go that direction. But no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you having. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on and talking.
I thought you were really cool to meet when we met in person, and. What else are you working on other than Stern Pinball now? If you want to fill in with anybody else, do you have any other projects you're doing with bands or merchandising or anything else right now?
Well, I was gonna be doing a bunch of concert and merch for bands. As a matter of fact, I had a couple dates for the Faith No More European tour and some other stuff, and lots of things that aren't happening now. And ironically, I'll send you after this just for you to see. But ironically, I started one of my Faith No More posters before lockdown, and I literally had the whole theme of it basically telling everyone in the poster, what are you doing here? The concert's been canceled, as a joke, because I kind of saw that things seemed to be going that way.
Oh, geez.
But now it's like, oh, that's in bad taste. That wouldn't work. But before the lockdown, it might have been funny. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Who knows, right? Yeah, because
But anyway,
now nobody wants to joke about it anymore.
no, I don't even want to joke about it. But yeah, no, a lot of stuff I can't talk about, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
of course. Yeah, of course.
I'm keeping busy, so that's good
So if anybody
for
wants to
me.
find you, how do we find you on the web, or if they want to look you up, you got your Instagram, you've got a website, I'm sure.
Yeah, zombieyeti.com, which is just, I don't do a good job of updating it, so I apologize. But Instagram's probably the best because that's the most, up to date, even though I'm not nearly as active as I should be either. But yeah, that's my username, Zombie Yeti. And I play a lot of video games. My Xbox Live ID and PSN ID is your mom, one word. So yeah, whatever.
Your mom. Didn't you have looked like you were working on a new poster on your Instagram recently? Is that something like a,
That's actually, it's sort of a reconfiguration of an old one, sort
oh,
of. It was actually, I had done a poster for the Northwest show a couple years back. Uh,
yeah.
and so this is sort of like a stripped down art poster of that, sort of like I did with the pro circuit, Stern Pro Circuit poster
I
from a
remember. Yeah, that
couple.
was a great
Yeah,
poster. Yeah, that's right. It
yeah,
does look similar to that. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's something you can purchase.
Not yet,
Not yet. Oh, it's not done yet.
but
Okay,
soon.
but
Yeah, but
soon.
soon.
All right, cool.
Um, yeah. No, I greatly appreciate it. And one of these days, when I'm in your neck of the woods, I'm gonna come to your shop.
Yeah, let's hope that soon, and we get through all this craziness in the world, and we can go out. And
Absolutely.
I think if it ever comes back, and I'm hoping it will, we're gonna have it'll be a hell of a party when we can first come back out and go to go out safely to a concert or whatever else, and not have that worry of, I dream some nights of like, oh my God, I'm at this thing and I don't have my mask. Where is it?
Listen, I'll be honest. My biggest concern, and this was early in the lockdown, and I was fairly vocal about this, and I'm usually not, is my concern has always been people who maybe are developing depression or anxiety over this, or
Oh yeah,
people who had it to begin with. And by the way, I'm one who has struggled with it my entire life, both.
yes.
I because I've dealt with it, and because I have a wonderful wife and kids who help support me. I'm not a problem, but there are other people who maybe didn't have a problem before this, or had a controllable, manageable problem, that don't maybe have the tool set or the support system to deal with it. So that's been a concern for me throughout all this. And I try to reach out to people I know that are by themselves, friends of
I
mine, and just check in and,
Amen.
you know,
I agree totally because I know a lot of people in my life that I've actually reached out to even during the pandemic and then with the unrest part and everything else, where there's some people that just aren't doing well. Or,
yeah,
not knowing, that some, a good friend of mine said, well, listen, I've been depressed all my life, and I came out of it playing competitive pinball, and now I don't know if there's any end to this. Where am I going to be able to come out and play pinball and
yep,
go to the shows? And he was really struggling. I had another friend of mine that works in the television and movie industry that they don't know when they're ever going back to work, and she was
yep.
really struggling, and she needed me to call. So I think we all have all been trying to help to talk some people off the ledges per se, and just a good friend of mine, when it first started, he sent me, and then all of a sudden out of the blue I get a box of these classic Planet of the Apes toys, and he reached out to me. He's a journalist and he travels around going to concerts and whatnot. He has a day job too, of course, like everybody else does in the music industry, and now more are going to have to be. And he was just like, listen, you really talked me out of a bad place, and I wanted to send you something. I'm like, that's so nice of you, Chris. He's a good friend of
That's awesome. That's awesome.
mine. So
I
yeah,
mean,
we
if
got
you
to
could,
look out.
honestly, if you could reach out and help one person, I mean, it's an ongoing thing, obviously. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
not,
there's days where I've been need a pep talk because I get very frustrated some days. They're like, "Oh, the end of the world," you know.
yep. It's hard
But
not. Well, I mean, it's hard not to. That's just it. I mean, again, people who have not had the issue are
yes,
dealing with things they've never dealt with, and
I've,
it's like,
I've, yep. I know what you mean. I've dealt with anxiety and not heavy depression, but a lot of anxiety through my years.
yeah,
And it comes and goes in waves. And
oh,
anyhow,
absolutely. As a business owner, I assume that has nothing to do with it.
business owner in 20, like right now, I mean, I'm almost 60. I was almost looking at my options of how do I retire, and I've got my store based with people that I make brighten their lives, and they're just like, "There's no way you're retiring. There's no way we're gonna let you." You know, it's like, well, let's hope we don't get to have to get shut down again. I mean, we were getting money from unemployment and whatnot, which helped. But I had to sell about 10 of my pinball collection, and
yeah.
when I
Well,
reopened, I did
I just
all.
feel bad for you because you had to sell your Ghostbusters. But no,
I bought a Turtles.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Oh
I
well, no,
sold
that's
the
good.
Game of Thrones. I sold the game.
Just buy the new games that I've done to support me. You can sell them. I don't care. Just buy them right when they come.
Yeah. Well, I bought every new Stern since Mustang,
Oh
except
wow.
for Stranger Things, and I don't have some of the specialty ones like Primus I didn't get,
Sure.
or the Pabst Blue Ribbon one I didn't get, or something like
Sure.
that. But I've been pretty much a Stern fanboy, I guess, in general. And we were doing really good. The Deadpool done amazing for me on location. I had it in a brewery right just next to my store, a restaurant. Now it's in my patio in the backyard because nothing's going on with the bars we're playing pinball and stuff yet around here.
I've heard I love hearing from operators when they tell me that a game I've been involved with is done well for them, and I hear it a lot.
That pool is just amazing. I think that's one of the best.
I love that game. Yeah,
I mean,
Tonio and
yep.
George, everything that they brought to that is incredible.
You know, I love Maiden and I love Jurassic Park. I mean, Turtles, I'm just getting used to. And I just picked up the Elvira, too.
Oh, that's a great game, too.
It's so cool with all the old B-movie stuff in it. Yeah. All right, so I guess we're going to wrap this up. Hey, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the button down there, whatever, and hit like and comment. And check out some of Jeremy's art. And maybe look up some of his poster gig stuff because that's amazing, too. I mean, I remember, like, I used to collect a lot of the Coop stuff back in the day. It's always a fan of Coop's. The Coop did a lot of the concert gig stuff too. Yeah.
He's still out there doing stuff.
Yeah,
just not in the gig world.
Not in the gig world anymore. No,
yeah, not as much anymore. But
he was one of the classic guys. I mean, there was a lot of classic ones from the '60s too. If you look back on the old concert gig posters.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and Frank Kozik, now he manages Kid Robot, I think.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, Kozik used to do all that stuff. I mean,
or thanks for being a guest on the Rock Fantasy Files, and I'll get this over to you. I'll probably put it up tomorrow or Friday, and I'll give you the link so you can share it if you like or anything.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'll share it. I appreciate it, and anytime. I think we could talk forever. So.
Stay safe with the Turtles and Deadpool. You got everybody protected in your room. You got you got Venom, you got Eddie, you got it. Well, you're well protected in the room.
I'm in good shape. Take care, man.
All right, we're off. We're yep.